What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to take a look at an epic moment in history most of you probably heard of, but you may not know a whole lot about it. It's the moment Theodore Roosevelt gets shot and still gives his speech, which is crazy. And the reason why it's so dang crazy is most of you are afraid to even get up in front of your classmates and give a short presentation, but your buddy Theodore Roosevelt does so with a bullet in him. We've always known that Theodore Roosevelt was one of the most tough guy president. There he is in his youth, and usually giving a speech within itself is not that impressive, but homeboy gets shot, bleeding, and when he goes to the speech, in spite of his doctors telling him not to go, by saying, "Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible. I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot." Now, you should always have a hook when you're presenting, but this is one of the best hooks in the history of speeches. Now, some people in the crowd didn't believe that he actually had been shot, thought it was political theatrics, and so Theodore Roosevelt showed them his bloody shirt. He also famously adds, "It takes more than that to kill a bull moose," which was the nickname for his political party. More background on that in just a moment. Now, a quick rundown of Theodore Roosevelt, just in case you don't know. Remember, William McKinley on September 6, 1901, the 25th president of the United States, is shot twice by an anarchist. He dies, making Theodore Roosevelt president number 26. And he becomes the youngest dude ever to take the office of the presidency. He's only 42 years old. JFK would be the youngest elected at 43 years old, but Theodore Roosevelt is a baby in presidential years. He easily wins re-election in 1904, very popular guy, but he decides to step aside in 1908 and the party nominates William Howard Taft. Former President Theodore Roosevelt headed to East Africa on an expedition sponsored by the Smithsonian, and they were going there to collect specimens for the Natural History Museum. And Roosevelt and his son Kermit, yeah, that's right, his son's name was Kermit, killed a reported 512 animals for this collection and for seemingly fun as well. Now, 1912 is a very important year because it is an election year, and that is the context in which this event takes place. And in 1912, you have a whole bunch of people running for the presidency. There you have Woodrow Wilson looking handsome as ever. He will be the Democratic candidate for the president. William Howard Taft is the nominee of the Republicans. And Theodore Roosevelt actually wasn't ready to retire. So he makes a comeback, tries to get the nomination of the Republican Party, does not get it, so decides to go form his own third party known as the Progressive Party, or sometimes called the Bull Moose Party. And to make the election even more interesting, you have the Socialist Party running your boy Eugene Debs. So in 1912, you got all these guys trying to be president, and it is in this context that the assassination attempt takes place on October 14th, 1912. And here's what happens. Roosevelt is out campaigning in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And while he is out campaigning, he eats some dinner. He leaves his hotel to enter a car to go to give a campaign speech. And as he does this, some stuff went down. Some guy named John Schrank, a 36-year-old saloon keeper, tries to assassinate Theodore Roosevelt. John had been following Roosevelt on the campaign trail from New Orleans and other places, and eventually he gets to Milwaukee and he decides to take his shot. He is armed with a Colt 38 revolver and fires one bullet with this 38 revolver. The crowd quickly grabs him, but that begs the question, what are his motives? Why is he trying to gun down this extremely popular politician? Now, later on, John will claim that he was trying to defend the two-term tradition of American presidents. Remember, George Washington established that, but we also have some other clues that may reveal some other motives. We have this letter, and if you look carefully at this letter that is dated before the assassination attempt, you will see John was also motivated by the ghost of President McKinley, which is urging him to avenge McKinley's assassination by shooting Theodore Roosevelt. And obviously this guy has some mental health issues. He's thinking he's acting on behalf of the ghost of William McKinley. And following his arrest, he is examined by a team of psychiatrists who ruled that he is in fact insane, and he will spend the rest of his life in an insane asylum in Wisconsin, where he will die in 1943. Now back to the speech. This is the part that I think is crazy. He gets shot. His doctors want him to go to the hospital, skip the campaign speech. Having a bullet in you is a pretty good excuse. Now Roosevelt, though, coughs into his hands, realizing he wasn't bleeding from his mouth, so he knew his lung wasn't punctured. It barely missed his lung. And so he decides to proceed to the campaign event. Now, it may be tempting to think his huge muscles are the reason that he did not die from this bullet wound, but Roosevelt was a badass, but he wasn't that badass. The truth is, the bullet that pierced his chest not only went through his shirt, but also his eyeglass case and his 50-page speech, which was in his pocket. So that helped slow the momentum of the bullet and allowed it to be less severe of an injury. Following the very long speech, Roosevelt would go get medical attention. This is the x-ray doctors took, and the bullet is right there. Doctors determined it was safer to leave the bullet in his chest than to try to remove it. So the bullet remains in Roosevelt's chest for the rest of his life. And at the speech, he also tells the crowd, the bullet is in me now, so that I cannot make a very long speech, but I will try my best, which leads me to my closing thoughts. Next time you have to give a presentation in front of your class, instead of being scared, instead of not really doing a good job, remember the words of Theodore Roosevelt, always try your best. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day. Peace.